Hello, my name is Piotr Garbaczonek, and welcome to my modular tutorials, tips and tricks, and more. What is a modular synthesizer? I'm going to walk you through the history, the formats, and some notable users. Modular synthesizer. It's a synthesizer that is configured using separate modules, all which provide different functions to the whole system. In order to create a patch, the modules must be connected together using patch cables. A little bit of history and chronological order for you to kind of grasp the idea of how it all started and where we are at right now. So in 1950s, the first modular synthesizer was developed by a German engineer, Harald Bob. In 1960s, Bob Moog created the Moog synthesizer, and Don Buchla created the Buchla modular system, giving birth to two new and different modular formats. And because Bob Moog was in Asheville, North Carolina, it's East Coast, and Don Buchla did his stuff in Berkeley, California, which is like West Coast. In 1970s, Japanese company Roland developed their own modular systems, starting with the System 100s to 700, and in the late 70s, the System 100M. Yeah, they are very difficult to come by these days, and if you can, they're very, very expensive. So, but they have a very signature sound. So maybe one day, Dave Smith and Chet Wood founded and developed the MIDI protocol in 1981, which enabled a connection between a variety of hardware and software instruments and give them a language to understand and communicate with. In 1990s, specifically in 1996, Dieter Dopfer of Dopfer Music Electronic developed a new format of modular synthesizers, which is called the Eurorack modular. And over time, it became a widely popular format. And Eurorack is also the format that I will spend the most time in. In 2000s and further along, there has been a rebirth of love for modular synthesizers all over the world. More and more people are learning about what these little machines can do and the endless possibilities that they provide to the users. Now I wanted to touch upon how modular is used in the music industry, because some people are not aware and therefore very dismissive about the idea of, having a modular system and, starting it in the first place. So probably one of the biggest things is sound design and effects. With the right amount of gear and with the right patching and kind of really going for things that are from ground up without like the most analog you can get, you can create some crazy sound design and some really cool effects for games or for film. It's pretty cool. Then you can go into film scoring and composition because yeah, like it's a great machine for making sounds that like nobody's ever heard or seen before. So and the best part is like, once you take down the patch cables and you have recorded it, nobody can really remake it again. I mean, sure, you can follow the patch notes if the person makes them and stuff, but it's very difficult to get the same sound or quality of tone again. So it can be used in film scoring and composition. It can be used in ambient music and soundscapes for film. It's kind of tattletaling on the composition aspect of it, but really you can make stuff that people fall asleep to. It's pretty powerful stuff. Experimental music, which is music that falls under the bracket of very that is very niche music, and I'm an experimental artist myself, and the stuff that you're able to create on those modular systems is kind of spectacular in a way that, like, you would never go this route if you were using something like Serum or Pigments or any soft synth that exists. This stuff kind of enables you to really be experimental with your approach to making music. That's really what it is. It kind of leads you in ways that otherwise you would have never approached creating a sound. So that's why it's very good for experimental music and for kind of experimenting in your on your craft in a way, kind of going outside of things that are comfortable for you and really trying to um, kind of gain a different perspective and a new method of creating stuff while you're using modular. Modular is also very, very good for teaching the signal flow of a synthesizer. You ever notice how like in Serum or in Pigments you have specific sections like envelope or oscillator, VCA, um, effects and stuff like that. So do other hardware synthesizers or digital synthesizers that have a specific sections of how the sound is being generated and through what effects it's being passed through, and then how it outputs. So in modular, you have all of the same things, but you just have to, you know, hone in on individual parts of the sound and really um, change you can change the aspect of everything. There isn't presets. You just have to try new stuff. Really, it's up to you which wave you're gonna do. It's up to you, like, which envelope you're gonna choose. It's really, that's assuming you have a lot of gear, but yeah, you really have a lot of control over the shaping of the sound that you want to get. You have a parameter of it for everything. For we can modulate parameters much easier instead of having to dive into the menus of a digital synthesizer or really having to do it. Let me drag this LFO to something to create this movement. I can just do it myself, with cables, and it's much more depth behind the sound, and that's what really is striking about this stuff. And then, of course, there's a new development, and probably not very new, but in at least in the Eurorack format, you're able to get into video modular, which is like modules that instead of outputting audio signal, they output video signal. So you can plug it into a display and then run an LFO to a specific thing that I don't know, you want to change some arc on the TV going, I don't know, a different direction. You can change that with an LFO. You can add colors, you can add shapes, a bunch of filters together, and then like that, instead of having signal for audio, Eurorack for audio, you have Eurorack for video. So you have a bunch of modules that do just that. And you can clock it to your master clock for Eurorack, and you have a nice, probably not the cheapest solution for having custom video, but definitely very experimental and something that you're never gonna see again. Or it would be very hard to create as a preparation for a set. You just kind of do it on the spot and plug it in to your system, and you have visuals, and that's pretty cool. So that's how it's used in the music industry. There are, of course, more uses and stuff like that, but we're not gonna go into all of them. So now I wanted to introduce some more modular formats to you, just so you know what options there are out there, not just Eurorack. Eurorack just happens to be most popular, and the most stock is made by a lot of manufacturers to provide a lot of option. There are other widely covered formats, or less likely than Eurorack, but just so you know that they're out there and waiting to be discovered and learned about. That's the whole thing. So first, we're gonna start with Eurorack, which is the most popular one. You measure it in width of HP. So the way it works is you have a screw, and if two screws fit in the width of that panel, that's called 2 HP. If 14 screws fit in the width of that panel, that's 14 HP. And so on. That's 28 HP, this is 20 HP. And the length of it is measured in U, so in rack units, and it happens to be the length of 3U. So modular or Eurorack format you measure in 3U by HP, however many HP it is, that's how wide it is. And then the power is +12, -12, and ground 5V. So you have ribbon cable, and where there is a red stripe or a red line, that means a -12V connectivity is passing through. And that's how generally you're supposed to plug it into the power supply. We're gonna get into more specifics later on, of course. Then we go into the Buchla format. And Buchla format is again, it was founded by John Buchla in the 60s in Berkeley, and now they have been making more and more modules like that. But they are not Eurorack, they are measured in HP as well, but it's a much different length. So you have, this is a module that's 2 HP, this is a module that's 1 HP. So it's really just how many spots are available. So really, and then the length is in 4U, so 4 rack units. The power also varies. Buchla usually makes their own cases for putting their own modules into it. And per model and per I guess yeah, per model there's usually a different power supply. As of pretty recently, they haven't been changing too much, but yeah. So this is your range over here for the power. So now we're gonna go towards Moog unit. Right now, I've kind of designed a little System 55 for you to see. It's, you're not gonna see a very detailed one, but it's class. So now we're gonna, yes, and some abbreviations are MU or .com. So let's go to the measurement. It's also measured in HP, but it's also not exactly the same thing as Eurorack, because of course it's a little bigger, and its length is 5U, so 5 rack units. Pretty big actually. And then the power is ±15V. Some also need ground, but that depends on which company you're going with. The two main people that do this stuff for Moog unit is of course Moog, and also synthesizers.com. So it just depends on which power supply you're going with and which modules require what usage and stuff like that. So let's go into ModCam A. This is again measured in HP, and then the length is 9 inches. And it needs a similar power supply to the Moog power supply. Surge modular, which is measured in HP as well. Length is the same as Buchla. And the power supply is just ±12. And yeah, Surge stuff is really, really nice as well. And then MOTM, a mother of modulars. This stuff usually, I think it was founded by, I could be wrong, by Synthesis Technology, and they have a lot of modules that are in this format on their website. It's also measured in HP, and the length is 5U. The power supply is the same as Moog. And there are many more modular formats, but the ones mentioned are the most popular of them all. Eurorack is by far the most popular, but if you have if you've done proper research and know what you want as a musician and as a, you know, sonic discoverer, those formats that I've mentioned are also relatively harder to get into, but still relatively possible because most other ones are usually custom order. Most these days also is custom order. If you're going into the route of, 5U and stuff, you can still get into it, but it's much more expensive these days. I wanted to kind of end this by going off a few notable modular users. Um, so you kind of have an idea that, some of your favorite games or films may have been designed by, the music or the sound could have been designed by a modular synthesizer. Um, so let's start with Hans Zimmer. This is some people don't know. Um, he's worked in a bunch of classic films. And he uses the Roland System 100M, which is this entire wall right here. And then in his studio, he has a lot of gear. I know that on The Dark Knight, he used the Move System 55, and also on his he has a lot of synthesizers. Let's be honest, but another one that he uses is a custom discrete synthesizer CMS 2607, which is a copy of an ARP 2500 from the early 70s. And this stuff is custom made and quite rare, so it does not really have a format to itself, but that's where you get into the custom world. Then we go into Richard Devine, who's one of the biggest, relatively more known sound designers and composers in my circle of people. He's an experimental artist and does a lot of glitch music and modular music, and he basically uses everything. Anything from bigger analog synthesizers to Eurorack to Swayman stuff to just a lot of Eurorack stuff. So that's Richard Devine. deadmau5, he's known for his just electronic music as a whole. Um, a lot of great music, and he uses a lot of stuff as well. Anything from these Eurorack cases um, to custom mod can be walls that nobody has. A bunch of Moog stuff, a Macbeth, Studio Systems, M5N, R2600, a Buchla 200E, a bunch of stuff. Then we go into Ludwig Göransson. Ludwig Göransson is a composer. He worked on Tenet, Black Panther, Mandalorian, Venom, and all stuff like that. And he does use Eurorack, among other things. But so yeah, that's him with his Eurorack behind him. Trent Reznor is an American musician, and he's in a band called Nine Inch Nails. But he also has scored some movies before, and he uses the Eurorack and the Buchla stuff, the Surge. He's known for using the Moog Mini Moog Voyager, and a bunch of other stuff. BT, who's an American musician and composer, he composed Fast and Furious and the Tomb Raider, and he uses obviously the Eurorack, and like this is a whole studio that's extremely filled with gear, so it would be very hard to go over everything that he's using, but I promise you most of it is synthesizers. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. I hope you learned something, and if you have any questions, let me know in the comments. I will happily answer. Yeah, and please like and subscribe, and share it with your friends if they want to learn about this kind of stuff. And yeah, see you in the next video. Peace.